The song Now or Never has several different versions across the Splatoon series. They each share the same basic melody, but their compositions are all very distinct from one another. The goal of this video is to pick out the very best version of Now or Never from the Splatoon games. First, we'll need to listen to each version. Then, I'll discuss my likes and dislikes for each. Lastly, I'll rank them all based on those likes and dislikes. Without further ado, let's start with the very first version, performed by the Squid Squad. Squid Squad's version of Now or Never may be the oldest, but it is far from outdated. The instrumentation is at its peak, and the build-up at the end with all the instruments eventually coming together to play that final Lydian scale is incredible. That said, there are some weak points in this version. The singer is a bit too quiet, which is a shame since this version has easily the most hype vocals. This is also the first of two versions where the rhythm is more uniform, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but considering the Splatoon style, the syncopated rhythm found in other versions is more appropriate and more enjoyable than this one. Regardless, Squid Squad's version of Now or Never has so much power behind it, and it's a strong first showing for the series' potential to create hype. Wet Floor gave us a version of Now or Never with its own unique spin. Instead of focusing on making every last minute count, this version focuses on the frantic nature of scrambling for every last drop of turf. While some find this new focus more appropriate for the song, I think that a song meant to underscore the ever-present possibility of a comeback should sound encouraging rather than distressing. Not helping its case is the soloist. Even in Incoming, the main theme of Splatoon 2, his singing sounds half-hearted at best. Despite these drawbacks, however, this version also improves on the original in some areas. The syncopated rhythm makes the song a lot more energetic, and even though the soloist isn't great, there are some backup vocals throughout the song that give the hook just as much of a punch as it's ever had. Wet Floor's version of Now or Never may seem like a step back at first, but it takes steps forward that make it stand out from the original. Splatoon 3, in many ways, feels like a more natural progression of the first game while also including the better parts of Splatoon 2. And Tentamissiles and blah blobber and waiting until the DLC to do off-the-hook justice. Anyways, this best of both worlds but mostly Splatoon 1 feeling carries over into Seaside's version of Now or Never, with the syncopated rhythm of Wet Floor's version dialed up even further and the return to the encouraging tone of Squid Squad's version. Seaside's version is overflowing with energy and excitement. However, there are two things holding it back from its full potential. First, this version's faster tempo tends to turn half the melody into mush during gameplay, only resembling a coherent melody during its classic hook and the beginning of its bridge. Another weak point is the percussion, which is too quiet to give it the exact punchy, zippy feeling it's going for. Seaside's version pulls the best elements from previous versions and adds its own uniquely good elements, but it still isn't perfect. So far, we've discussed the versions used in regular Turf War gameplay, but none of these versions were used for the Splatfest in their respective games. Instead, all of the usual battle music was replaced with music created by the current news hosts, or idols as they're usually called. As such, the music was designed to emphasize the party aspect of Splatfests, and since all of it was made by the same group in each game, their versions of Now or Never homogenize even better with the preceding battle song. For example, the Squid Sisters version works perfectly after Ink Me Up. The Squid Sisters have always had some of the best vocals in the series, easily making their case for the best vocal performance of Now or Never. The bridge especially is just amazing. There's something beautiful about the simplicity of its lyrics. This version is also plagued with the uniform rhythm, but the electro-pop instrumentation makes it more exciting and fits the Splatfest like a glove. Even so, this version of Now or Never is still the least powerful. The lower key makes it sound like the party is winding down rather than reaching its climax, which would be fine for a results theme, but not for the last minute of the battle itself. Overall, the Squid Sisters Now or Never doesn't hit the same highs as other versions, but it does have its own allure with its unique tone and unmatched vocal performance. Off the Hook's version uses the same key as Wet Floor's version, obviously with different instruments, but also with a different harmony. Instead of feeling like a discouraging anthem of uncertainty, it feels like a climactic end to a great party. The bridge is certainly different, but as a whole, the song still has excellent instrumentation. The vocals sound good within the song. but the heavy use of autotune holds them back from having genuine energy that Marina and especially Pearl have shown time and time again they can easily create. Though it may be held back, Off the Hook's Now or Never comes the closest to matching the energy of the regular versions. Speaking of vocals though, remember when I said the Squid Sisters version has an unmatched vocal performance? Well, what happens when you add that to Off the Hook's version? You get this. The Final Fest version, as expected, decided to go big. A collab between the Squid Sisters and Off the Hook? With perfect party time pop? What more could you ask for? Well, mainly for the Squid Sisters to be louder. For some reason, they're a bit quieter than Off the Hook. Even ignoring the inherent imbalance of that, why would the feature of the collab have quieter vocals? Shouldn't it be the other way around? That minor nitpick aside, it's easy to see why this version of Now or Never is so beloved. What say you, Deep Cut? Deep Cut's version does a much better job standing out from the others. First of all, the unique vocal style provided by Shiver and Fry adds an oriental spice to this familiar dish. Second, Big Man's blaring air horn at the start sounds like a siren warning all the players of the remaining time. Keep in mind that the characters are hearing this music too, so having this air horn start off Now or Never is actually helpful for them in a way. The bridge for this version is also great, starting off with a bit of a groove before gradually increasing the intensity. Though this version does some things better than Seaside's version, it's also lacking in a couple areas. The percussion is still not that strong, and at a couple points the vocals can get a bit jarring. Though it's a bit rough around the edges, Deep Cut's version still has many uniquely good qualities. Alright, we've made it through every version.
Did you
now
forget
it's time for
about
the rank-
me?
Oh. Yes, I did.
Naturally.
Table Turf is the brand new game mode in Splatoon 3. It's basically a Turf War card game, so it makes sense that Turf War's most ubiquitous song would also be included in some fashion. The card game context changes the song in a few different ways though. First, the tempo is slower. This is a turn-based card game, and especially in the last 3 turns, you may want to take your time. Second, the song loops instead of having a set length. Again, the last 3 turns are not a fixed amount of time like the last minute would be. Third, there is expectedly less power than in the battle versions. If Table Turf were the main mode, this might be considered a negative, but this mode is so superfluous that it can't even be selected from the quick menu. Anyways, this version of Now or Never is just a bop. Just like the song that precedes it, it's simple but catchy. The bass line and percussion come through nicely, and the melody is as good as ever. The fun, bouncy feeling of the song only adds to the charm of Table Turf as a whole. Of course, I wouldn't normally seek out this version of Now or Never when there are more energetic versions I could choose instead, but I definitely wouldn't skip it either. Although it does remind me of a version outside of its home series that I definitely would skip. The Table Turf version of Now or Never is a reserved but delightful variation. As we've seen, every version of Now or Never has its own merits, and it's easy to see what can make any one your favorite. There's not much difference between the best and worst on this list, so let's jump right into it. In 8th place is the Table Turf version. It's certainly charming, but it's nothing special. In 7th place is the Squid Sisters version. Though the vocals are among the best and the energy is still there, the tone and rhythm are what hold it back. In 6th place is Deep Cut's version. The strong start, spicy vocals, and smooth bridge give it plenty of gusto, but the percussion is far too weak to push it over the top. If anything, it drags it down further. In 5th place is Wet Floor's version. Though it improves somewhat on the original, its focus on franticness leaves it feeling half-hearted at best and distressing at worst. In 4th place is Off the Hook's version. This version has the edge over the other Splatfest versions in its powerful instrumentation and energy. The auto-tune may be a deal-breaker for some, but it doesn't overpower the rest of the music. In 3rd place is the Final Fest version. The best Splatfest version gets the best vocals. As Pearl would say, this version is straight up sloppy. In 2nd place is Squid Squad's version. It has exciting vocals and excellent instrumentation. The only thing that brings it down is the uniform rhythm, but that's easy to overlook with a composition this strong. In 1st place is Seaside's version. The rhythm, instrumentation, and vocals are all top-notch, and even though the faster tempo blurs the melody at times, the energy it brings to the song cannot be overstated. Despite the weaker percussion holding it back from its full potential, the elements of Seaside's version come together better than any other version, giving Seaside the title of the best version of Now or Never. Do you agree with this list? Do you have a different ranking entirely? Or are you somewhere in between? Tell me all about it in the comment section below. Until next time, stay fresh!